If you have fab budget left over, well, I don't really foresee a situation in which you're spending it this week, Tom Brawley, unless you're going to pick up defenses, because we have reached double-digit weeks in the 2024 NFL season, and it's brutal out there, my friend. There is nothing out there on the waiver wire because what's funny is traditionally the best position on the waiver wire is running back, and running backs aren't getting hurt this year. The year of the running back, the bell cow running back, Saquon Barkley jumping over people, Derrick Henry running through people, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, all these veteran running backs, the demographic you expect that gets hurt is not getting hurt this year. Meanwhile, we've got quarterback injuries, we've got wide receiver injuries out the wazoo.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
And the fact of the matter, Tom Brawley, is, look, I've long been saying that the pendulum had flipped way too far in the direction of the anti-running back. Like, the running backs don't matter. But the fact of the matter is, a running back is easier to replace in an NFL offense in terms of functionality than an elite wide receiver is. And that's why these wide receiver injuries are kind of hard to square away from a fantasy football perspective. T-Bro, you write up over 80 players on the waiver wire on Fantasy Points every week. This one's about as bad as it gets so far this year.
Yeah, it's not great. We're not going to beat around the bush, but we're going to dig deep here. We still write up all these players, and we're looking for situations where we can find something. So, running back, as you said, the injuries are going to come at some point. So we have a list of players to potentially stash away as handcuffs for the time being, but you're not going to find those players that are going to be inserted into your lineup this week to play in Week 10, but we still list out a whole bunch of players that can help you out, and we'll try to go through these wide receivers. There's a couple situations where guys are going to get more opportunities here because of injury situations. So hopefully we can find a few gems out there for people that are looking to improve their team here heading into the double-digit weeks. As you said, we're starting to hit the backstretch here of the fantasy season.
Let's start while talking about an injury at the quarterback position. Tom, things have gone from bad to apocalyptic for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott suffers what appears to be a serious hamstring injury in Sunday's loss to the Falcons. Jerry Jones said after the game that he was very concerned. And then Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport reporting today that it was even worse than they feared. And Mike McCarthy has already ruled him out for the game against the Eagles and has said that that injured reserve is a possibility for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, who are seriously in trouble here. I'm not saying you go out and pick up Cooper Rush unless you're in a super flex league. Cooper Rush is obviously viable in such leagues, but there could be a quarterback that you need out there. Bo Nix still floating around out there. He gets it done with his legs. But one of the stories of the last month or so is how the LA Chargers have unleashed Justin Herbert. And that first half that he played against the Browns, I thought was outrageously good. The Browns sacked him 6 times in the first half of that game, and he still threw for 250 and 2 touchdowns in the first half alone. I thought he was outrageously good. He's available in slightly more than half of Yahoo leagues right now.
Yeah, he's playing extremely, extremely well. And Jim Harbaugh, I think, is falling in love a little bit with his quarterback. He realizes just how talented he is, and the receiving core is also taking some steps forward here. This was a group that got rid of Keenan Allen in the offseason, cut Mike Williams, so they're breaking in a lot of new players, and Ladd McConkey has kind of stepped up as the #1 wide receiver, and Quentin Johnston is back to full health here. So this passing game has really started to take off ever since their bye. They've gone a lot more pass-heavy. It also kind of corresponds with Gus Edwards leaving the lineup, and whenever he's on the field, teams tend to be very run heavy whenever he's behind the quarterback. So this offense is trending towards a more pass heavy approach here, and the matchups coming up suggest that they're going to stick this way. Tennessee not so much, which is the matchup this week, but they have Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Atlanta, all games that could have the potential for shootouts here down the stretch. So if you're struggling at quarterback, maybe you had Prescott and are anticipating him being out for at least the next month. Justin Herbert available in 56% of Yahoo leagues. If he's still out there, he's a viable pickup here with the Chargers starting to throw it a little bit more.
Tom, New England Patriots, obviously Drake Maye might have made the play of the week, well, excepting Saquon Barkley. Drake Maye might have made the play of the week, and it was a perfect Patriots game. I was talking to our producer, Timmy Reardon, on SiriusXM Fantasy this morning, said it was a perfect Patriots game. Drake Maye did something outrageous, and the Patriots lost. That is exactly what they wanted to see, but he nearly ran for 100 yards in that game. He's available in roughly 90% of Yahoo leagues, and I mean, he seems to be, even though they don't have a lot of weapons, he seems to be a little bit more appealing than some of these milquetoast pocket passers.
Yeah, those Patriots fans are excited. They want to stay at the top of the draft to get Travis Hunter potentially and give Drake Maye a weapon here maybe next year. But what an outstanding play to extend that. And it was a lot like Jaden Daniels a week before extending the play on the Hail Mary throw and scoring the touchdown on that play as well. So Maye, whenever he's been in the lineup, 3 full starts so far this year, 18.7 plus fantasy points in all 3 starts. And the one game where he didn't finish, he suffered the concussion against the Jets. He had 11.5 fantasy points in the first quarter of play. Of course, he had a long touchdown run in that game. So this guy has been putting up fantasy production. They are throwing the ball. They're being aggressive. Whenever he's out in the field, they play a completely different style compared to how they were playing with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. So this is he's got a pretty decent little schedule here as well. Chicago, Miami, Indianapolis as well. So we're looking for some improvements here from the receiving core and the offensive line, but the offensive line struggles have also enabled him to scramble around a lot more. 95 rushing yards last week against the Titans. This has been in his arsenal. I think the only time he hasn't gone over his rushing yards prop is the one week that I actually bet him, but he's been running around quite a bit here to boost his fantasy production. So he's a very viable, and he's 89% available in Yahoo leagues right now.
Tom, in one quarterback leagues, a guy who might be available coming off a bye, your boy, Russell Wilson, has played well in his 2 starts with the Steelers. He's unlocked George Pickens. By the time you watch this, maybe the Steelers have made a trade for a wide receiver. There was a report from Adam Schefter that the Steelers were actually very close to striking a deal for Christian Kirk before Christian Kirk went out for the year with a broken collarbone. So the Steelers are working the phones. And here's the thing about Russ, Tom. Not just has he played well so far, the schedule is pretty freaking juicy going forward. The Commanders, the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals coming up. That's a juicy run of matchups for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's looking like he's going to be able to throw a little bit more here moving forward. There's going to be some competitive games. Of course, the Steelers have the back-loaded schedule here with the AFC North still to be played, all 6 games in the AFC North. And this week's game is going to be really exciting with the Commanders. Steelers coming in as underdogs in that game. So potential for maybe a little bit more pass-heavy game script in this one. So, and as you said, Joe, anticipating the Steelers potentially making a move at wide receiver at the trade deadline. They've been rumored to be sniffing around Adam Theilen, Darius Slayton, another guy from the Giants who I would personally, I hope they go after very hard. I think he would be a great pair with Russell Wilson and playing across from George Pickens in this offense. So the offense has looked much more explosive since he took over, and he's not giving up the job anytime soon. He's really unlocked George Pickens in his 2 starts, 185 yards and a touchdown for Georgie Pickens here through the first 2 weeks with Russell Wilson. So this is an offense that could be unleashed a little bit here in a matchup with the Commanders this week.
Use code YouTube25 to go to Fantasy Points and check out the entire waiver wire article, which has about 80 players on it, including kickers and defenses. Tom, you already mentioned, though, by the way, those subscriptions are already 50% off, and you get a discount on top of that. So essentially, like, we're paying you to get the subscription. It's really, really cheap right now for obvious reasons. Tom, you mentioned there's no running backs to talk about. right now. I mean, barring something happening on Monday Night Football, which hasn't happened just yet for us, at least, not for you. It's handcuffs, and you're really just speculating on if any running back is going to get hurt. So I want to go to wide receiver and talk about a couple of guys, and I really just want to tie the guys to some of the quarterbacks we talked about. And I'm referencing in particular 2 Chargers guys who, I loved Josh Palmer this offseason, but he got injured early in the season. McConkey comes aboard. Quentin Johnston starts to emerge a little bit. Then he gets hurt. But Josh Palmer scores. Quentin Johnston scores this past week against the Browns. Those guys available in an overwhelming majority of Yahoo leagues. And if this Chargers pass rate over expectation is real, there's going to be more opportunity for those guys to create volume.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston was a guy that we all were very excited about early in the season with the early touchdowns in the first 3 weeks. He was a guy that was heavily, picked up off the waiver wire. We talked about him in the first month of the season, and he's been a guy that's been gradually dropped over the last couple of weeks and missed some time for an injury, but he is back. And of course, he found the end zone again, back at full strength. So he is back in the mix here. Josh Palmer, he was dealing with his own injury, knee issue to start the season, and he looked a little sluggish, and now he's starting to come along here. He's the 3rd receiver in this receiving core right now. I will just say I am a little concerned. They do have quite a bit of depth at the position, so they do rotate these guys a little bit more. But Quentin Johnston in his first game back was at 68% route share, so that's pretty strong. And the guy is making a lot of plays right now. So if Harbaugh continues to lean into the passing game a little bit more, which we think they probably will have to with their upcoming schedule. This is not a bunch of pushovers here with the Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens and Atlanta Falcons. There's a chance for some shootouts in those games. So Quentin Johnston, the guy you may have added early in the season and dropped, might want to go reconsider it and go pick him back up this week.
Tom, one other guy I really want to bring up at the wide receiver position, Xavier Legette. I know he's owned a little bit more leagues than Josh Palmer is. Scored another touchdown. He scored in 4 of the last 5 games. Bryce Young has started to show a little bit of life. And the irony is, for Legette, is arguably Bryce Young's best throw of the season resulted in an interception this past week against the Saints because Legette just let a defender take it right out of his hands. But Legette's been a guy who's been making some plays here, and obviously there's plenty of opportunity. As you mentioned, the Panthers might trade away Adam Theilen, get a 7th round pick from the Steelers for him. I think that might be a smart move for the Panthers and will open up more for Legette and you Coke heads out there, those of you who picked up Jalen Coker.
Yeah, Coker's we'll be closely monitoring this Adam Thielen situation over the next couple of days. This is a situation to watch anyway. Maybe Adam Thielen is even a guy to pick up depending on if he is traded or not. If he isn't traded, there's a chance that he could be pretty active as the slot receiver we saw last year at times with Bryce Young. I mean, the start of the season, he was just getting peppered with targets. So we're looking for all these pieces of the Panthers offense. Maybe Bryce Young is just starting to turn the corner here a little bit to give these guys a little bit of hope. And quite honestly, just be like relevant in garbage time situations in the second half. Don't roll over and die. Keep putting some pressure on the opposing offenses. So that's what we're hoping for here. And Legette and maybe Jalen Coker could be those guys if Thielen's moved, and Thielen could be in the mix here. He's 25% of he's only 25% owned as well. So we're looking at all these pieces for the Panthers moving forward here without Deontay Johnson in the fold anymore after he got traded last week.
I guess we do have to talk about the New Orleans situation. I think the Saints would be smart to shut down Chris Olave indefinitely after Derek Carr threw him a hospital ball, quite literally threw him a hospital ball, that being his 2nd concussion of the year, 3rd in recent memory for Olave. Cedric Wilson and Mason Tipton are available in virtually every league. I mean, but this, Tom, you're talking about an awful, awful football team, arguably the worst roster in the NFL right now.
Yeah, it's really disintegrated since the start to the season when they blew out the Panthers and the Cowboys, and everybody was pumping them up a little bit, but they've really fallen off here. 7 straight losses. Fired Dennis Allen this week, so this offense is really struggling. So now they got to turn to potentially Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton in deeper leagues. Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson, if you really want to look deeper. I would look at, we'll touch on some of these tight ends. Taysom Hill, still available in 63% of leagues right now. He's going to have to be a big part of this offense. He got back to finding the end zone last week against the Panthers, and he's been involved as a receiver as well. Saw 5 targets, had 4 catches for 41 yards. So Taysom Hill, if you're looking at the tight end position, he is going to be in the mix here. Kendre Miller back to the IR with a hamstring injury. Jamal Williams has a groin injury as well. So the Saints have nobody else besides Alvin Kamara right now. So a guy like Taysom Hill is going to be involved every week.
Let me just touch on a tight end really easily, Tom. If T. Higgins doesn't play, start Mike Gesicki. Yeah. They play on Thursday night. I mean, look, 30 points on DraftKings. He cleaned up for me in DFS. Just start him if T. Higgins doesn't play for the Bengals.
Yeah, and we're back into the 4 teams on bye this week. David Njoku's on bye. Tucker Kraft, Brock Bowers, Noah Fant, not so much, but those are 3 top tight ends this week that are on bye. And yeah, Mike Gesicki, it's already trending towards T. Higgins sitting out another game here. We have the Monday practice report. It's an estimated report, but T. Higgins did not practice. So it's looking like a potential another week where we can fire up Mike Gesicki as a, set it and forget it tight end streamer here. Without Higgins in the lineup here, he's averaging 70.5 receiving yards per game and 15.3 fantasy points per game in the 4 games where Higgins has missed. He's been pretty irrelevant otherwise whenever Higgins has been on the field, but maybe with Eric All leaving the lineup here, he unfortunately tore the same ACL that he tore last year at Iowa. He's going to be out of the mix moving forward. So even that injury might keep Gesicki more involved moving forward. So I think he's one of the best pickups on the waiver wire this week.
Tom, there are other players that you have talked about, but our guy Trey and our guy Thomas, they tell us these videos under 20 minutes. Those are the ones that make the biggest impact on YouTube. So I'm going to implore you to check out the waiver wire article at FantasyPoints.com. Use code YouTube25 and get 25% off what is already a 50% discounted subscription. Either NFL Standard or NFL Premium will get you access to the article. He's Tom Brawley. I'm Joe Dolan. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week 10, and we'll talk to you on the Best Bet Show later this week.